Before we get to episode 123 of the I Can't See You podcast, I'd like to ask for your support for the Keystone chapter of the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. Please go to ican'tseeyou.com/coffee and make a purchase at the White Cane Coffee Company website. Every purchase you make earns the Keystone chapter a 10% commission. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
From Studio B in Swarthmore, this is the I Can't See You podcast with David. It's like blind people for dummies.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 123 of the I Can't See You podcast. My name is David, at David Benj on all the socials. I really appreciate you joining me for today's episode. And I've got a few things to talk about, all kind of part of the same thing, things that have happened over the last week or so, and just some ways that I do things that again, that sighted folks can. And one of the things that I realized over this past weekend, I was sitting down here in Studio B, working on my computer, and I was having a really difficult time seeing what I was trying to see on the screen. And at that point, it dawned on me, or I realized, I guess it didn't dawn on me because, I realized that at some point I'm going to have to learn Voiceover on my computer. I don't remember exactly what I was doing. I don't remember if I was going through email, but I couldn't zoom in enough, and I couldn't make it big enough or bold enough, and I just wasn't getting what something was saying. The colors weren't. It bothers me both because I've done web and graphic design, and because I can't see. It bothers me when a site or a graphic doesn't have a decent amount of contrast where, there might be a dark gray background with some slightly lighter gray text. And I think I was filling out a form. And the way I use my computer, as I've mentioned previously, I don't use Voiceover on my computer. I use what's called text-to-speech. So I highlight something, and then I hit a couple of keys on my keyboard, and it reads it to me. Well, in a text field, it doesn't do that. In a text field, if I'm on my computer, I have to take a guess of what it says. Does it say email address? Does it say first name? Does it say whole name? And I don't always know. Sometimes I'll take out my phone and go to that same web page and then go through it on my phone to see what I have to put where. I am very big. I'm a touch typer, and I've been a touch typer for, probably since middle school. I've been able to touch type. It was recommended to me by a friend of my dad's who was also our family doctor at the time. He said, look, you want to be a journalist, you should be able to type. Secondly, because of your vision issues, you should learn how to type so you will always be able to communicate with people. And of course, I'm on the older side of things. So when he meant communicate with people, he wasn't talking about shooting them an email. He was talking about writing a letter on a piece of paper with a typewriter. Similar to how Liz's dad used to send letters to her when she was in college, and it was hysterical. He would use every inch of the paper, and what he would do, he would type the regular letter, and then when he had stuff to add, he'd turn the paper sideways and type in the margins going the other way. And it was pretty funny to look at some of the stuff that he would send and type up. And I always got a kick out of that. So because I'm a touch typer, I hate to try to do it on my phone if I have to fill out a form. Now, it's become a little bit easier because on my phone, for example, just like on the computer, some things get auto-filled or can be auto-filled. If you start to type, for example, I start to type my email address, I just type the D for David, and then there'll be a couple of choices, one of them being my I Can't See You email address. One of the things that doesn't pop up, though, is my I Can't See You podcast at gmail.com email address. So, that I have to type out all the way. And when you can't see on your phone, which I can't, you listen. So I have to find the I, and then once I find the I pick my finger up, and then it types the I. And when I need to find the C, I move my finger around to where the C is, and then I hear C, and then I lift my finger up. And that's actually a little bit better than another way that it used to be. You used to have to find the letter, and then once you found the letter, you would double tap. So in essence, you were touching that letter 3 times, first to find it, and then double tapping to type it. So the way it works now, and I don't remember what it's called, is a lot easier. Although, again, not fast. I can type a lot faster, even with psoriatic arthritis in my fingers and hands and wrists and, basically everywhere else on my body. It's still a lot easier for me to type, and that's why I like to fill out forms on the computer, especially if there's sentences or, more than just a name and address and stuff like that. So I realized when I was doing this form, and I had no idea what this form was asking for, and I tried for, not a long time, but enough time that, a normal person would have been done and would have already forgotten, about sending that, submitting that form. So I realized that, I'm going to have to learn to use VoiceOver on the computer. And I've been trying to put it off and put it off and put it off because it's not perfect. Like I've mentioned before, there are issues with it. It doesn't recognize things. It takes you into other areas that you may or may not want to be in. And it just makes going back and forth, using it and not using it is not as easy as it is on the computer, or on the phone. And it kind of made me sad that I realized that I'm going to have to do that because, look, since I was a little kid, 10 years old or so, or maybe even younger, I've known that, unless there's some dramatic breakthrough, I know that probably one day I will not see virtually anything, or maybe I won't be able to see anything, but I know I knew that, that was the big fight all along. I would always go into my ophthalmologist appointment, and he was another friend of my dad's, who, when I had an issue at 8:00 on a Sunday night, my dad would call him up and say, hey, David's having these troubles. He'd say, okay, come pick me up. We'll go to the office. And we would go to the office and he'd take a look. And, once he was in his pajamas and a robe, going into the office. So I would always say, oh, are there any breakthroughs? Again, this is before the internet and I could look on my own. And the same guy told me to stop looking at things on the internet when I would say, oh, I've noticed this. Do you think it's this? And he would say, stop looking up stuff on the internet. Sadly, he died a while back. So I kind of knew, because he would always say, look, there's nothing that will make your site better. We're trying to preserve it for as long as possible. Again, when you're a 10-year-old kid hearing that, you think, oh, as long as possible. Okay, maybe I'll have until I'm in the 50s. Well, I am in my 50s now. And so the time is here. But it doesn't make it any easier knowing that it was coming. It's troubled me, again, because I am a very visual person. And I've tried to work around that by getting used to listening to things. And, for example, if I were to look at a number, more than a 3 or 4 digit number, let's say a 6-digit number. Newsline, for example, is a person's ID number in NFB Newsline is 6 digits. Well, when my phone or VoiceOver reads it reads it as, 612,372. So when I send that to someone and I know that they can't see, I will separate it by commas because it makes it hard for me to understand it that way if you have to type it in. Just like if you, some websites where they have to require, authentication, you have to type in a code. So then you get a text message with that code, and the code might be, 6 digits long. It will read it for me as that same thing, 612,372, as opposed to 612,372, which obviously is a lot easier for me to understand. And maybe that's just how it's gotten for me as I've gotten older. I don't know. I can't answer that. So when I send somebody's ID code to them, knowing that they can't see, I will always put commas in. So 6, 1, 2, because then whatever they're using on their computer or phone to listen to that number, it will say 612,372. And I don't know what that number is, by the way. If you play it in the lottery, good luck. It was just a number I picked out of the air. So, but if I were to look at that number and see it, no problem. But the problem is, like I said, can't see it anymore, really. And so there's been times when me and a friend of mine have been talking about someone that we know who's also is also blind. I don't know if she's totally blind, this person, but she on several occasions has given my friend the what for because she was using her sight. And the friend that I'm speaking about has even a little bit better sight than me. And, and I always laugh at that because I've always been told, use all the tools that you can. And if you're able to use those, if you're able to use your eyes to actually see it, why wouldn't you use that? And, so I always think of that. And I mentioned this to another person who I was speaking to a few months back, and he was saying, look, you gotta learn voiceover. And I said, yeah, but I can still see a little bit. He said, yeah, but if it's unreliable, maybe you shouldn't use that if you're not getting the right information. And so, and this is a guy who is he's very long-winded, but he's a very wise man. So he had recommended at the time, maybe, and I was having difficulty at a Keystone chapter meeting where I was giving a fairly lengthy treasurer's report that I couldn't pull up one of the items that I needed to pull up. And, so he had recommended a couple of things, and I haven't started to learn voiceover. And again, I'm very hesitant because, the last time I had tried, it's not easy to toggle back and forth like it is on the phone. And a quick side note on the phone, I was using voiceover earlier, and as I've mentioned, there are some things, especially on the phone, that I notice there's maybe a button or a link that my phone is not reading to me. So I will shut voiceover off and then tap it to see if anything happens or to see if it takes me where I need to go. Well, earlier today, I had done that. I was touching something, and I don't remember what I was doing it in. And so I shut voiceover off, which is you hit the power button 3 times, 1, 2, 3, and just like today's episode number, and it shuts voiceover off or turns it back on. Well, I shut it off. I did what I needed to, and it didn't do anything. Like I said, well, when I was turning it back on, I don't know if my finger twitched, but instead of 3 times hitting the button, I hit it 5 times. And all of a sudden, my phone started to make an alarm sound, like a bad alarm, like somebody was in trouble. And the next thing it said to me was dialing 911. So I didn't know that was a thing. So if you're a voiceover user and you need to get 911 in a hurry, 5 taps on the power button or whatever that's called on the right-hand side of the of the iPhone. So so that's how easy it is to turn it off and on. For example, I'll turn it off if I am taking a picture and I want to then go look at the picture and zoom in. Earlier today, I was outside with Ziggy, and we were near the fence, and he loves dandelions. And I don't know if there was a dandelion right near the fence. He loves eating them. I am telling you, when he spots them, he gets so excited and runs over to them and eats them. But as he got nearer to the fence, he stopped, and then he took a step back, and then he looked forward a little bit, and then he backed up again, and then he backed up like 4 steps. So I started taking some pictures because I had no idea what was there. And then on the last picture I took, I quickly sent it to Jane. I said, "Do you see something here? Something has spooked the dog." And she didn't see anything there. So I don't know if there were bees or something, but it was kind of funny. So when I came back in and I went through some of the other pictures, Jane was down in the kitchen, and I shut VoiceOver off, and she was zooming in to take a look to see if there was anything there, and we couldn't tell. And then when we were done, we sent it back to the regular, so it wasn't zoomed in, and then I hit the button 3 times and turned VoiceOver back on. Now that's also sometimes causes an issue within apps where when you do it within an app, it then creates an issue with the app and so forth and so on. And that's another reason why I've been hesitant to put VoiceOver on the computer. It will sometimes mess with, I don't know if it's like unplugging and plugging things back into your computer back in the day when you would be in the middle of a program. It also makes typing a little bit more difficult with, again, the last time I had tried to use it, when you have VoiceOver on and turning it off and on and so forth. So I've just come to the realization that I have to do it. If I want to be able to use my computer and do everything that I want to do, I'm going to have to do it. And I don't know how it's going to work working in WordPress and working in Google Analytics and stuff like that. So, but it's just gotten to the point where I think I've mentioned before, I spent over an hour just looking for a box that I had to check or uncheck, I don't remember which, in Google Analytics, that everything was off to the left-hand side of the screen, but this box that I needed was all the way to the right. And because I was zoomed in and everything was on the left, it took me that long to find it. And that's where, that's where it becomes an issue when stuff like that goes on. And again, bing, bang, boom, I would have been done had I don't know how it would have been in VoiceOver, but a sighted person would have looked around the screen, the whole screen, and maybe they would have seen it right away. Maybe not. Maybe it would have taken 10 minutes, but it's still a lot easier. And it was over an hour, and it was over multiple days that it took me to find this button. And I didn't find it until I watched a video for something else that mentioned this button. And I said, oh, that's what I have to go do. And then I started to look. So, it's just a matter of using all the tools. But when the tool isn't working, I guess it's time to start, to start looking elsewhere to figure out how to make it work. I always think of it, and I think of a lot of movies, as an analogy. It's, like in Titanic, Leo says, we got to stay on the boat as long as possible. And I feel like I got to use my vision as long as I can until it just doesn't work enough for me. And I've got more movie analogies today. Again, you can tell that I owned a video store, and maybe I'm doing the movie analogies because I had, I still have a West Coast Video T-shirt that I had on yesterday. So, so I guess maybe that's why. Maybe they're all popping into my head. Another thing that I realized this past weekend when I was speaking to some folks in the Keystone chapter, and then going through a group, I'm in a group, a Philly meetup for the blind group, and I was going through, I hadn't gone through the WhatsApp app to see what was going on in the group. And I think they're doing a meetup tonight. And I think they're going to play a movie that was up for an Academy Award. And I forget what it's called. And I'll put it in the show notes, once I figure out what it is. And it's not a very long movie. And I want to make sure that, if I don't, quote unquote, watch it with them via Zoom. And again, when we're watching a movie, you just need the described audio. And April is audio description month, by the way, in case you wanted to know. And if you've never tried it, Netflix is great with it. And I can imagine at some point, some sighted person is going to say, hey, I can watch a movie, and again, air quotes around watch a movie, while I'm driving from here to the shore this summer, if I use audio description. Which is it's basically like an audio program because you hear, the regular dialogue and sound effects and everything else that's going on. But then you also hear, somebody describing what's happening. He's walking into the room, a dark room, and notices something moving, by the window. And then you hear, footsteps because that's the person's walking across the room and whatever. So, you can try it on Netflix or Amazon. Both of them are great for audio description. All other things not so easy to turn on and turn off. On the cable system, again, not too easy to turn on and turn off. A little bit easier if you have the voice remote now. Still not as easy as it should be. So between the two things, talking with the folks in the Keystone chapter and then listening to the various folks in the WhatsApp group, I realized, I'm not. I don't know what I don't know what the story. I just feel like I'm caught between the sighted and the not sighted, the blind, and again, like Sam Wheat and Ghost. And I know I've mentioned that before because I felt like this a long time. One of the reasons I started the podcast was so many people, sighted people just didn't get what it was like to not be able to see, to be blind or visually impaired. Even when you go to like a doctor's office, like an ophthalmologist, some of the things that have been said to me over the course of my lifetime have just been crazy. I'm thinking, you're supposed to know this. Just because I lose my vision doesn't mean you failed. You've got to, you should know, hey, once I do lose my vision, then what do I do? Where do I go? How do I get help? And I've asked multiple eye specialists that, and some of them have told me things and others have not. So like I said, I've kind of felt like I'm in the middle, where, and I don't know, the folks who are on the blind side of things, and I'm sorry I don't have something to pull from that movie, The Blind Side, which I did love, by the way. There are things, I just want the workaround. If I can't do it, I don't want to complain, oh, I can't see it, I want to say, okay, I can't see it. How else can I do it if I can? And, sometimes, some of the blind folks that I know, not ones that I'm friends with, but some of the blind folks that I know will go on and on about not being able to do it and how it's, it's hard and it's not fair, and it's not fair. But, again, Princess Bride, life is not fair, Highness. So, I just, okay, I get it. It's not. And but I don't want to talk about it not being that way. I want to figure out how can we fix it or get around it and move on. And I think that's, sometimes my problem with not going in depth enough. And listening to, for example, Simon, who is just going to be a leader in the NFB one day. I have no doubt in my mind. He can go in depth on a lot of things. And I don't know if I'm just not interested or I just want to figure out how to get from point A to point B. I want to figure, I don't want to go that in depth. And he is great at doing that. And that's why he's great at doing the podcast. And that's why he's great at speaking to folks about issues. And he's interested in talking to people about certain things like that. And I just want to get to where I'm going or how I want to do a certain task and move on. That's what makes Twitter so great. So, so there's just things that, I'm trying to figure out with Ziggy, for example. It's been warm in the Philadelphia area over the last couple of days, so we've had our windows open. And so he is a little more restless than he normally is. He's up and, he'll lay down for a couple minutes, then get up. Well, when everything is closed up and, he does that, usually it means he has to go to the bathroom. But over the last couple of days, there's just been a lot, lawnmowers are going outside and the person, we're in a twin house. So the person whose house is attached to ours, I don't know if she's having medical issues, but she has, it seems like she has a nurse staying with her, and they change, just like shift changes, these people are coming and going. And, so it's all very distracting to the dog. Like he may lay down for a few minutes, then get up. Well, yesterday he was just nonstop. Last few days he's been nonstop, but yesterday especially, and Ziggy is not a speaker. He will not say, go to the door and then bark or whine or moan or whatever. He'll just go to the door, and if you're not following him, you don't know that he's standing at the door wanting to go out. Now, because he is getting to everything on the counter, I'm usually with him. But again, because he's been constantly moving about, I haven't been able to, read him. And yesterday, he was doing this. And the next thing I know, he's standing next to me and he starts peeing on the floor. Again, completely my fault. I couldn't see his actions. I had him out maybe 45 minutes earlier, but then he came in and I guess it was even after he ate lunch, I had taken him out, but he had a lot of water. I think it was like 88 yesterday. So he was drinking a lot of water. So I didn't take that all into account that he'd have to go out again that soon. And I just wasn't reading him. And, I didn't know if he was looking at me and trying to give me, hey, I need to go out sort of vibes or what. And, so things like that. So, the flip side is if I take him out too much, basically we go outside and he eats grass and flops around on the grass and, and I just haven't been comfortable yet to let him off the leash, even though our backyard is fenced in because, of the surgery. And I don't know what else is in the backyard that he might get into, that he might dig up or unearth. So I've been hesitant to do that. And, so when he goes out, I go out with him. And, during the day, it's not a big deal because, I'm his all day. That's all I do during the day. I play with him during the day and I take him out when he wants to go out. So if he wants to go out and spend a half an hour outside, it's not a big deal unless it's raining and I'm getting soaking wet. At night, however, when I have time to do stuff on the computer for the first time all day, I don't want to go outside and spend 20 minutes out there of letting him eat some grass and just, meander about the backyard. I want to, I want him to go out, go to the bathroom, come back. Once he goes to the bathroom, it's easy to get him to come back in. There's one word I have to say. It's the C word. Not that C word, carrot. And he could be doing anything, and you just have to say it. You don't have to say, do you want one? You just have to say, carrot. And in fact, today, when I was bringing him back in and we were walking, he was walking at a normal pace, not fast or anything. And I said to him, is it going to be zucchini, which he also loves, or carrot? And when we have zucchini for dinner, Liz will cut the ends off and cut them into bite-sized portions for him. And then, over the course of the next couple of days, we'll give him pieces. So, I said zucchini first and then carrot. And as soon as I said carrot, he picked up his pace and was almost dragging me in. So it's kind of funny. It's just, again, back to him being out. I'd love to let him run around on his own outside. I'd be out there with him, but I'm not comfortable. Look, we took a $4,000 hit to have the surgery, and I don't want to have him to go through with that again. And, I don't know, we've checked the back, but again, until we're probably going to get these like river rocks that are fairly large in the back, but we haven't found the ones we want. Once we do, we'll put them down and we'll feel comfortable with that. Although he was chewing on a piece of a brick yesterday, not that he could swallow it, but I'm sure he could break it apart. And, it was it almost looked like a veneer. It was only about half an inch to 3/4 of an inch thick. So I'm not quite sure what it was. I know he dug it up in the backyard. And it's hysterical to watch him dig. It's he really is like a landscaper, digging up stuff, eating all the weeds. Pretty funny. But again, I can't see what he's doing, for example, back in the trees and, what he might be digging up there, where it's right now, it's a lot easier because it's only wood chips and then dirt, in the grass I can see. And, like I said, when he was digging in the grass yesterday and came upon this, whatever this piece of, brick was, I could hear him hitting it with his claw. So when he then put it in his mouth, I knew it was something big, and I reached over and grabbed it from him, and he gave me he gave me this look and just tried to get it back from me, which of course I didn't give it to him. So the two things that I realized this weekend, those two things kind of made me not sad, but, I realized both. And, it's just like the episode is, nothing is as easy as 1, 2, 3 for me. And it goes, much deeper than that. And in some instances has nothing to do, with seeing and not seeing, just in general. The thing that I always get, as I've mentioned before, is I've never seen anything like that before, someone will say to us. And it's happened in many different, points in my lifetime. And, it's just gotten to the point where, when Liz and I are talking about something and we want to get a table and chairs for our patio out back, so we can sit out there. And, once the dog's allowed to run around, I envision spending a lot of time just sitting out there. The Wi-Fi works great in our backyard, and, the dog can run around all that he wants, and, we could sit outside but we were going to go to this one place and it said, please allow at least 8 weeks for delivery. So we're not going to go to that place because 8 weeks, we're going to be, midway through summer at that point. So, it's just, like I said, it's nothing's as easy as 1, 2, 3 for us. So that is all I have for you this week, and kind of more of a rant, I guess, than anything else. But again, if you have any questions, comments, or show ideas, please reach out. 646-926-6350. And you have up to 3 minutes. Please let me know if I can use your recording on an upcoming episode, or if it's a comment that you just want me to know, you can certainly just say it. And also let me know if it's okay to play it. Or you can reach out via email. ican'tseeyouPodcast@gmail.com. I Can't See You sounds like a whole sentence, but it is only 7 characters long. So that's ICANTCU podcast@gmail.com is the email address. And show notes obviously are always at ican'tseeyou.com/the episode number. So in this case, ican'tseeyou.com/123. And I will put some links that I've talked about in the show notes there. And as well as a link to the White Cane Coffee Company, which, as I said at the beginning, helps out the Keystone chapter with our affiliate link there. I appreciate it. If you need any kind of coffee, give them a try. ican'tseeyou.com/coffee. And I really do appreciate you listening to today's episode 123. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, be well, and I will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the I Can't See You podcast with David. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. And don't forget to share the podcast with your friends.